this is the first time we are seeing our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, in this avatar. How was your interaction with him?
Oh, it was such a privilege for me to do, and I've been a massive fan of India for many years, since I first went to the country aged 18, So for me to be able to go back and take such an iconic global leader, like Prime Minister Modi on an adventure into the wild was a real privilege, So I hope people really enjoy this show. Certainly you see a very different side to the Prime Minister than maybe people in India are used to.
Wow. You have interacted with President Obama also in the past. Did you notice any similarities between the two, or were they both completely different?
Well, I had the huge privilege of taking President Obama on a trip to Alaska a few years ago to show him the effects close up of climate change. So in the sense it's similar, an iconic global world leader, different terrains. Alaska was very cold. Where we went with Prime Minister Modi was obviously rainforest and hot and humid. But what was similar was that they are there for the same purpose, which is driving this message of we have to protect the environment. We've got to really back big conservation projects, and we've got to look after our world, And for me, it's really heartening when you see such powerful men like President Obama and Prime Minister Modi stand up and say, together, we've got to do this, Together we have the power to do this. And especially India, that is now, it's almost the largest country in the world, the biggest democracy on the planet. And such a strong spirit always in India that people want to do the right thing. And protecting our environment and conservation is key. It's a key role that we all have to do together. It's not one country, it's all of us. So,
Yep.
and I think protecting our environment and conservation is such a key thing that all of us have to do, not just one country, and I was there for that purpose, to try and say, listen, together we can do something good here.
Great. PM Modi has spoken about sustainable conservation in the past. Did you feel his commitment towards protecting Indian wildlife?
There's no doubt, Prime Minister Modi is a man who cares deeply about the environment, and that is why he came on this journey with me, and our conversations all the way through it. You can see it's something close to his heart. He actually spent time in the jungle as a younger man, and actually I was surprised of how comfortable he was out there and how calm he was as well. And, I really just hope ultimately that the actions follow. Together we've got to do all we can to protect our environment and promote conservation and look after our world.
Refraining from mentioning any spoilers, could you share any particular instance that viewers could expect that could show a different side of PM Modi, who's actually always seen as a politician and not someone who ventures into the great wilderness?
Well, it's interesting. I think it's, often you just see politicians behind a podium in a suit looking smart. But, the wild is a great leveler. It doesn't care who you are. It rewards commitment and courage, and you've got to work together. And we actually got hit by some really big storms and torrential rain whilst we were there. Even just the off-camera journey for his Secret Service and his team to reach us. They were in little boats and, on this river, and there was flooding. And, our team that were filming there was saying, everyone was really on edge, but the Prime Minister was just very calm. And I think I saw that throughout our journey. Whatever we were doing, he was actually very, very sort of at one. And that was that was cool to see, because you never know really what someone's like until you're in a crisis. But it was good to be reminded that as a world leader, Prime Minister Modi is calm in a crisis. That's a good quality. And also I think what shone bright for me was his humility. He was a very humble guy, and even though it was pouring a rain and the Secret Service were trying to get out umbrellas, he was going, no, I'm fine. And then we reached this river, and I'd made this raft out of some reeds and a tarpaulin. And I said, I think we could get across this using this. And the Secret Service were like, we can't put the Prime Minister in a little kind of homemade coracle out of grasses and reeds. But he was like, it's fine, we'll do it together. And he said, Bear, you get in as well. And then the thing started sinking, and I thought, I can't be in as well. So it ended up me swimming, pushing him. and he was soaking wet, but big smile on his face, even through the rain. And you learn about people in those moments.
Oh, that's so wonderful to hear. And in the promos also, we can hear you tell Mr. Modi that, you have to protect him despite his security. I mean, now that you've told us, he didn't seem nervous at all. So he was all in the game.
I think even, I said to him at the beginning, listen, my job is to keep you safe, from wild animals and from the environment and from, bad weather and big rivers, which was true. He was, though, very calm with it. He was very considered. He was very trusting of me, and we just travelled together. I think it was harder in a way for his security team. They're carrying weapons and briefcases with all the, I don't know what's in those briefcases, but a lot of weapons. And, I think it was hardest in a way for them. But certainly the Prime Minister in the middle of it was like an example of calm and cheerfulness.
Wow. Well, you are seen eating some rather unpalatable food in your survival quests. Did that segment make it to this particular special?
Well, the Prime Minister is a vegetarian, so there was going to be no eating of kind of grubs or anything like that. But of course, in the wild, you can survive very well off berries and roots and plants. And, certainly the Prime Minister spent quite a lot of his younger years in the wild. So actually he was very comfortable with that. We ended up very cold at the end of this river, very wet, and we shared some beautiful Indian tea together. And for me, that was a special moment.
Wow. What are your suggestions to Indians watching this? How can we sustain our wildlife reserves, and how can we foster a spirit of venturing out to the great outdoors?
I think so much of it is take real pride in what you have. And India is such a remarkable and beautiful country with so much beauty that you've got to protect. But it comes down always to the individual. We have to take pride in it, and little things like don't litter, and support initiatives that reduce plastic or protect the environment or promote conservation. And, I really see it so much in young people as well, all around the world, and also in India. And I see it in the young scouts as well, is that young people, they want India to stand up and to lead the way in protecting the environment. And, it can happen, but it takes great leadership. And that's why, for me, I'm really heartened to see Prime Minister Modi wanting to do something on a huge scale to protect the environment and promote conservation.
You mentioned Scouts. You're a chief ambassador for World Scouting. What role can Scouts have in the future of our planet? If you can elaborate a little bit more on that.
Well, I've just returned from the World Scout Jamboree in West Virginia in America, where 50,000 young people from all over the world, including India, were gathered. And, you have to remember now, Scouting is an organisation 50 million strong. And the Indian Scouts are incredible as well. But the leaders of tomorrow are being built by young people, and especially through Scouting. And my hope is that it's those young people, especially in India, that have such influence and such power to stand up and say we've got to reduce plastic, reduce fossil fuels, protect the environment, and work together for our one planet.
And lastly, are you surprised by the reception you all have received on social media?
Well, it's been amazing seeing the response when we announced this adventure with Prime Minister Modi. And obviously, India is this huge country now almost biggest country in the world. So I knew there was going to be a big response. But I think seeing him so out of the norm, out of what you expect. And for me, the program really delivers much more. We've only just teed up a little part of it. We were in a tough environment, in tough conditions, crossing rivers in rafts, all of this stuff. And the side of Prime Minister Modi that you see is unlike you've ever seen before. And, the team have come back and they said, you know what? This could be the most watched TV show ever in any country ever in the world. And that's my hope for it, because the message is good and the message is strong. And India, we think you're amazing.